All stories posted on our channel are stories from our subscribers and created by us based on real events we've experienced and witnessed. We post new stories every day for your entertainment, that we hope you enjoy them. Thank you.
The rain had been falling for 3 hours straight, the kind of relentless downpour that transforms ordinary streets into rivers and turns a simple drive home into an exercise in patience. I was behind the wheel of our SUV, navigating the flooded roads of suburban Nashville with the careful attention that weather like this demanded. I first saw her. My name is Donovan Pierce. I was 41 years old, a general contractor who had built a successful business over 15 years of hard work and dedication, and until that Tuesday evening in early November, I had believed that I understood the woman sitting beside me, my wife of 12 years, the mother of our 2 children, the partner I had chosen to spend my life with. I was about to discover how wrong that belief was. The woman was standing at a bus stop, though standing is perhaps not the right word. She was balanced on a single leg, a pair of crutches tucked under her arms, while 2 small children, a boy who looked about 5 and a girl who couldn't have been more than 3, huddled against her, trying to find shelter under an umbrella that the wind threatening to rip from her grasp. Her left leg was missing below the empty space where a limb should have been painfully obvious, even through the rain-streaked windows. "My God," I said, slowing the car. "Look at that poor woman." My wife, Priscilla, glanced up from her phone with the distracted air of someone whose attention was elsewhere. "What? That woman at the bus stop. She's got 2 kids, and she's on crutches in this storm. We should stop." "Don't be ridiculous, Donovan. We're already late for dinner with the Hendersons. The Hendersons can wait. This woman needs help. She's at a bus stop. The bus will come. In this weather, with 2 small children? She's soaking wet, Priscilla. The kids are soaking wet. That's not our problem." Priscilla's voice carried the particular tone she used when she considered a discussion closed. Firm, dismissive, final. "We have plans." I pulled the car to the side of the road, ignoring the irritated sound my wife made. "What are you doing?" "I'm going to offer her a ride." "Donovan, no. We don't know this person. She could be anyone. A drug addict, a criminal. And those children could have lice or diseases. I am not having strangers in our car. She's a mother with 2 kids, standing in a thunderstorm on one leg. She's not a threat. She needs help. Then call her an Uber. Don't involve us directly." "An Uber? In weather like this?" "It would take an hour to arrive, if one even accepts the ride. That's her problem, not ours." I turned to look at my wife, really look at her, for what felt like the first time in years. The woman beside me was still beautiful, still polished in the way that hours of careful maintenance produced, still wearing the designer clothes and expensive jewelry that had become her uniform. But something in her expression was ugly in a way that cosmetics couldn't conceal. "Her problem," I repeated slowly. "A woman with 1 leg, trying to keep 2 children safe in a storm. And your response is that it's her problem. I didn't create her situation. I'm not responsible for solving it. No one said you created it. But we're here, right now, with a car that has empty seats and the ability to help. And you're choosing not to because you're worried about being late for dinner with people we see every month. Don't lecture me about choices. I have every right to decide who gets into my car. Our car. And those are children out there, Priscilla. Small children, getting drenched because their mother can't run for better shelter, which is tragic, I'm sure, but not my responsibility." I stared at her for a long moment, feeling something shift inside me, a recognition that had been building for years but had never crystallized into conscious awareness. This was who my wife was, not just in this moment, but fundamentally, essentially. This capacity for indifference to suffering that wasn't her own. I had seen glimpses of it before, had made excuses for it, had told myself it was pragmatism rather than. But watching her dismiss a struggling mother and her children without a moment's genuine consideration, I couldn't pretend anymore. "Get out of the car," I said. "What?" "Get out of the car. I'm going to help that woman, and I'm not going to listen to you complain about it the entire time." "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious. Get out. Call yourself an Uber and go to the Hendersons' dinner without me. I'll deal with the consequences later." "Donovan, this is insane. You're choosing a stranger over your own wife. I'm choosing basic human decency over dinner plan. If you can't see the difference, then maybe that's a bigger problem than I realized." The silence that followed was charged with years of accumulated tension. Disagreements that had been papered over, frustrations that had been swallowed, incompatibilities that had been ignored in favor of maintaining the appearance of a functional marriage. "If I get out of this car," Priscilla said slowly, "I'm not getting back in." "Then I guess you're not getting back." She stared at me, clearly expecting me to back down, to apologize, to prioritize her comfort over my principles as I had done countless times before. When I didn't, something hardened in her expression. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe, but I'd regret leaving that woman out there more." Priscilla gathered her purse, opened the door, and stepped into the rain with the dramatic flair she brought to all her exits. I watched her march toward the entrance of a nearby restaurant, already pulling out her phone to call for alternative transportation, and felt a peculiar mixture of sadness. Then I put the car in gear and pulled forward to the bus stop. The woman looked up as I approached, her expression wary in the way that vulnerable people learn to be wary of unexpected attention. Up close, I could see that she was younger than I had initially thought, early 30s perhaps, with dark hair plastered to her face by the rain and eyes that held both exhaustion and fierce protectiveness as she drew her children closer. I rolled down the window, letting the rain spatter against my arm. "Ma'am, can I offer you and your kids a ride somewhere? This storm isn't letting up, and you're going to catch pneumonia out. I don't—" She hesitated, clearly torn between caution and the practical reality of her situation. "I don't have money for a taxi." "I'm not a taxi. I'm just someone who saw you struggling and wanted to help. No charge, no strings attached. Why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do. Because those kids are shivering. Because my mother raised me to help people I could." The little girl was crying now, soft whimpers that cut through the sound of the rain. The boy was trying to be brave, but his teeth were chattering visibly. "Please," I said, "let me help." Something in my voice or expression must have convinced her, because she nodded, the motion small and uncertain. "Okay, thank you." I got out of the car to help her, holding an umbrella over the children while she maneuvered herself toward the vehicle. Getting into the SUV with crutches and one leg was clearly a practice challenge, but she managed it with a grace that suggested years of adaptation. "I'm Donovan," I said as I helped the children into the back seat. "What are your names?" "I'm Isaiah," the boy said solemnly, "and this is my sister Rosemary. We call her Rosie." "Nice to meet you, Isaiah. Let's get you somewhere warm and dry." The woman, she hadn't given her name yet, was settling into the passenger seat, her crutches awkward, confined space. "Where can I take you?" I asked. She gave me an address that I recognized as being in one of Nashville's less affluent neighborhoods, several miles from where. "I can get you there," I said. "No problem at all." As I pulled away from the bus stop, I glanced in the rearview mirror at the two children huddled together in the back seat, their wet clothes already beginning to form puddles on the leather upholstery. Priscilla would have been furious about the water damage, but Priscilla wasn't here, and those were just seats, replaceable, insignificant compared to the small lives they were protecting. "Thank you," the woman said quietly. "I'm Nadine Hollister." "You're welcome, Nadine. I'm just glad I could help." The drive to Nadine's apartment took 45 minutes in the storm traffic, but the time passed quickly. The children fell asleep almost immediately, exhausted by whatever ordeal had preceded my finding them at the bus stop. Nadine remained awake, watchful, her body language suggesting someone who wasn't accustomed to accepting help from strangers. "Do you mind if I ask what happened?" I said, breaking a silence that had stretched for several minutes. "You don't have to answer if it's too personal. What happened with my leg, you mean?" "No. Though I'm curious about that too, if you're willing to share. I meant what happened today. Why were you at a bus stop in a thunderstorm with two small children?" Nadine was quiet for her gaze fixed on the rain-streaked. "My car broke down 3 days ago. Transmission, they said. It would cost more to fix than the car is worth. I've been taking buses to work, to the kids' daycare, everywhere. Usually it works out okay, but today," she trailed off. Today the weather happened, and the bus was and the kids were tired, and I couldn't carry both of them, plus manage my crutches," and her voice cracked slightly. "And I stood there in the rain, watching car after car drive past, and no one stopped. No one even slowed down. I stopped. You did. Which is why I'm sitting here wondering what your angle is." "My angle? Everyone has an angle. People don't help strangers without wanting something in return. I learned that lesson a long time ago." The cynicism in her voice was wearying rather than hostile, the resignation of someone who had been disappointed so many times that disappointment had become the expected outcome. "I don't have an angle," I said. "I saw someone who needed help, and I helped. That's it. That's not how the world works. Maybe not usually, but it's how I try to work." She studied me with the careful assessment of someone who had learned to read people for her own protection. "You were arguing with that woman," she said, "before you came to the bus stop. I saw her get out of the car and walk away." "My wife." "Yes. She didn't want you to help me." "No, she didn't. And you helped anyway. That's going to cause problems for you, isn't it?" "Probably. But some problems are worth having." The answer seemed to surprise her, shifting something in her expression, from wariness towards something that might have been curiosity. "What about the leg?" I asked, changing the subject. "If you don't mind my asking." "Car accident, 5 years ago. Drunk driver ran a red light and hit us broadside. Isaiah was in the car. He was just a baby. By some miracle, I lost my leg, and I lost my husband. He died at the scene." The information landed with the weight it deserved. A widow, a single mother of 2, an amputee, Nadine Hollister, had endured more than most people face in a lifetime, and she was doing it alone. "I'm sorry," I said, the words inadequate but necessary. "That's an enormous amount of loss." "It is. But the alternative was losing Isaiah too, and I would give 100 legs to prevent that." "And Rosie?" Born after the accident. I was pregnant when the crash happened. Didn't know it yet. Spent the first trimester learning to walk again, while my body was also building a new life. The doctors said it was inadvisable to continue the pregnancy, but she glanced back at her sleeping daughter. I couldn't give her up. She was all I had left of normal life, of who I used to be. You had her alone? I had her with my sister in the delivery room and a medical team that expected complications. But yes, essentially alone. My parents died when I was in college. My in-laws blamed me for their son's death. Irrational, but grief isn't rational. It's been just me and the kids for 5 years. The isolation she described was profound. A woman navigating disability, single parenthood, and grief without the support structures that most people took for granted. How do you manage? I asked. With work and the kids and everything. Carefully. I work as a medical coder. I can do most of it from home, which helps. Isaiah's in kindergarten now, so there's school during the day. Rosie goes to a daycare that has sliding scale fees based on income. We get by. Not comfortably, but we get by. And now you don't have a car. And now I don't have a car. Which means I can't get Isaiah to school on time, can't get Rosie to daycare, can't get myself to the office on days when remote work isn't an option. The whole system falls apart when one piece breaks. The precariousness of her situation was staggering. She had built a functioning life out of almost nothing, balancing countless responsibilities with the added challenge of disability, and one mechanical failure threatened to collapse the entire structure. I'm going to help you, I said, the decision forming as I spoke. You already helped me. You're driving us home. I mean more than that. I'm going to help you figure out the car situation, the logistics, whatever you need. Why would you do that? You don't know me. I know enough. I know you're a good mother, doing everything possible. I know you're struggling with circumstances that aren't your fault. I know that anyone in your situation would need help, and that helping is the right thing to do. The right thing, she repeated the phrase as if testing it. That's a concept that doesn't get much traction in the real world. Then maybe the real world needs more people doing the right thing anyway. We arrived at her apartment complex, a modest building that had seen better days, but was clean and safe-looking despite its age. I helped Nadine and the children out of the car, carrying Rosie while Nadine managed her crutches, and Isaiah walked beside us with the solemn responsibility of a child who had learned early that life required seriousness. The apartment was small but impeccably organized. Every item in its place, every surface clean, despite the chaos that 2 small children inevitably generated. Nadine moved through the space with practiced efficiency, settling the children on the couch with blankets while I stood awkwardly near the door, uncertain whether my continued presence was welcome. I should probably go, I said. Let you get the kids warmed up and into dry clothes. Wait. Nadine turned to face me, her expression unreadable. I want to know why you really did this. The real reason. Not the noble answer you gave in the car. That was the real answer. People don't make their wives leave the car for strangers. That's not normal behavior. It's extreme. What's really going on? I considered the question, understanding that it deserved an honest answer, even if honesty was uncomfortable. I think, I said slowly, that I've been looking for an excuse to see who my wife really is. And tonight, I saw it. Her refusal to help you. That wasn't just about being late for dinner. It was a window into who she is as a person. And what I saw through that window was something I can't ignore anymore. So I'm a test? A way to evaluate your marriage? No. You're a person who needed help, and I helped. But the help also revealed something I needed to see. Both things can be true. Nadine studied me for another long moment, then nodded slowly. I believe you, she said. I'm not sure why, but I do. Then believe this too. I'm going to help you. Not because I want anything from you. Not because I have an angle, but because it's what I should do, and because I can. That's a lot of generosity towards someone you just met. Maybe. Or maybe it's just basic human decency that looks like generosity because the bar has been set so low. I drove home to find Priscilla's car in the driveway and lights blazing in every window of the house. Never a good sign. She was waiting in the living room when I entered, her posture rigid with fury, her expression cold enough to lower the room's temperature. Where have you been? She demanded. I told you. I gave that woman and her children a ride home. That was 2 hours ago. It was a long drive in bad weather. You've been gone for 2 hours because you were playing Good Samaritan to some crippled stranger? The word crippled was deliberately ugly, and I felt something harden in my chest at hearing it. Don't call her that. What should I call her? The one-legged woman who's more important to you than your own wife? She's a person, a mother, a widow trying to raise 2 children on her own while dealing with a disability that makes everything harder. She deserves basic respect, not contempt. Respect? Priscilla laughed, the sound harsh and humorless. You left me standing in the rain to help someone you don't even know, and you want to lecture me about respect? You weren't standing in. You walked to a restaurant awning to call for a ride. Nadine was standing in the rain, with 2 children, with one leg, because her car broke down and the bus was The situations are not comparable. Nadine. Priscilla's voice dripped with disdain. So you're on first-name basis with her now. How touching. What did you expect me to do? Drive in silence? She told me about her life, how she lost her husband, how she's been managing alone for 5 years. She's not a threat or a burden or whatever you've decided she is. She's a human being who was having a terrible day and needed help. And you were just thrilled to provide it, weren't you? The hero riding to the rescue of the poor, unfortunate woman. Did she thank you properly? Express her gratitude in some meaningful way? The insinuation was foul enough that I had to pause before responding, forcing myself to remain calm, despite the anger building in my chest. If you're suggesting what I think you're suggesting, then this conversation is over. I helped a struggling mother get her children home safely. That's all. The fact that your mind immediately goes somewhere ugly says more about you than about me. My mind goes where the evidence points. My husband abandons me for a stranger and spends 2 hours with her on a rainy evening. What am I supposed to think? You're supposed to think that I did the right thing because doing the right thing matters. You're supposed to think that helping someone in need is what decent people do. But apparently, you're incapable of thinking that. The accusation hung between us, more serious than anything I had said before. Priscilla's expression shifted from anger to something more dangerous, the cold calculation of someone planning their next move. You're going to regret this, Donovan. You're going to regret choosing her over me. I didn't choose her over you. I chose compassion over indifference. I chose helping over ignoring. If you can't understand the difference, then maybe you're the one who should be regretting your choices. My choices? I wanted to get to dinner on time. I wanted to maintain our social obligations. I wanted to avoid getting involved with some random homeless person. She's not homeless. She has an apartment, a job, a life that she's built entirely on her own despite obstacles you can't imagine. Stop characterizing her as something less than human just because helping her was inconvenient. Inconvenient? You made me stand in the rain for 30 seconds until you walked to shelter. Nadine was standing in that rain for God knows how long, with 2 children who couldn't help themselves. The difference in impact is enormous. The difference in impact is that she doesn't matter to me and I do matter to you. Or at least, I should. And there it was. The fundamental disconnect been growing between us for years, finally articulated clearly. Priscilla's worldview divided people into 2 categories, those who mattered and those who did. Her own comfort, her own priorities, her own needs were paramount. Everyone else existed only in relation to their usefulness or relevance to her. Everyone matters, I said quietly. That's the part you've never understood. Nadine mattered. Her children, the people we pass on the street, the people who serve us in restaurants, the people who have less than we do, they all matter. Not more than you, but not less either. Equal, human, worthy of basic consideration. That's naive, maybe. Or maybe it's the only way to live that doesn't turn you into someone incapable of genuine connection. Priscilla stared at me, and I watched something shift in her expression. The recognition that this argument was about more than one evening's events. We had reached a point of fundamental incompatibility, a divergence in values so basic that no compromise could bridge it. Where are Ethan and Charlotte? I asked, suddenly aware that our children hadn't appeared despite the commotion. At my mother's. They're staying the night. You sent them to your mother's on a school night? I anticipated this conversation might be difficult. I didn't want them hearing it. The calculation in her decision was typical of Priscilla. Always thinking ahead, always managing circumstances to her advantage. But for once, I was grateful for her manipulation. Our children didn't need to witness what was clearly becoming the unraveling of their parents' marriage. This isn't working, I said, the words emerging with a finality that surprised me even as I spoke them. What isn't working? Us. This marriage. We want different things. See the world different. Value different. Tonight just made it impossible to ignore anymore. You're talking about divorce because I didn't want to pick up a hitchhiker? I'm talking about divorce because you couldn't see a struggling mother and feel anything other than annoyance at the inconvenience she represented. I'm talking about divorce because the woman I married, or thought I married, would have been the first one out of the car to help. I don't know when that woman disappeared, or if she ever existed, but whoever you are now is not someone I can build a life with. The silence that followed was absolute, the kind of silence that precedes earthquakes and other cataclysmic events. You're serious, Priscilla said finally. I'm serious. Over a stranger. You're ending our marriage over a stranger with 1 leg and 2 children. I'm ending our marriage over who we've become, or who we've revealed ourselves to be. Nadine was just the catalyst. The problems have been there for years. Priscilla's expression cycled through several emotions. Shock, anger, calculation, something that might have been genuine hurt before settling into a cold composure. If that's your decision, then there's nothing more to discuss. I'll contact a lawyer tomorrow. I think that's best. And what are you going to tell Ethan and Charlotte? That you destroyed their family because you felt sorry for a cripple? I'll tell them the truth, in age-appropriate terms. That their father and mother want different things and couldn't figure out how to want them together, and I'd appreciate it if you'd stop using that word. What word? You know what word. Priscilla smiled, a thin expression that contained no warmth. You're going to regret this, Donovan. Everything we've built, everything we have, you're throwing it away for principles that don't matter in the real world. Then I guess I'll have to build something new, something that does matter. I turned and walked out of the living room, out of the house, into the night that was still dripping with the aftermath of the storm. The air was cool and washed by rain, and I breathed deeply, feeling something loosen in my chest that I hadn't realized was constricted. My marriage was over. My life as I had known it was ending. But somehow, standing there in the darkness, I felt more like myself than I had in years. The following weeks were a blur of logistics and emotions. The practical mechanics of ending a marriage competing for attention with the psychological impact of the decision. Priscilla and I agreed to live separately while the divorce proceedings moved forward. She stayed in the house, I rented a furnished apartment near downtown Nashville, and we traded custody of Ethan and Charlotte according to a schedule our lawyers had drafted. The children took the news better than I had feared, perhaps because the tension between their parents had been palpable. Charlotte, at 9, was old enough to understand the basics, but too young to grasp the full implications. Ethan, at 11, asked pointed questions that suggested he had already intuited more than "Is this about that night?" he asked during one of my custody, when you came home really late and Mom was really mad. Partly. That night showed me some things about our family that I hadn't wanted to see before. What things? Things about what your mother and I value differently. Things about who we are as people. Mom said you chose a stranger over her, a woman you'd never met. That's one way to see it. Another way is that I chose to help someone who needed help, and your mother didn't want me to. The woman wasn't more important than your mother. Helping was more important than being comfortable. I think I understand. Like when you taught me to share my toys even when I didn't want to, because sharing is the right thing to do. Exactly like that. Sometimes the right thing is hard, or inconvenient, or makes people upset with you, but that doesn't make it less right. Ethan nodded solemnly, processing the concept with the earnest attention he brought to everything. I'd want someone to help me, he said finally. If I was stuck in the rain with no car, so would I. And that's why we help others when we can. The conversation stayed with me, reassuring in its suggestion that whatever mistakes I had made as a father, some values had been successfully transmitted. Ethan understood compassion in a way that Priscilla apparently didn't, or perhaps had chosen to abandon somewhere along the way. I thought about Nadine often during those weeks, wondering how she was managing, whether the car situation had resolved itself, whether the small kindness I had shown had made any lasting difference. Part of me wanted to reach out, to follow up on my promise to help, but another part hesitated, uncertain whether my attention would be welcome, or whether it would seem like something other than genuine concern. The decision was made for me when I encountered her unexpectedly at a grocery store, 3 weeks after our first meeting. She was navigating the aisles with a shopping cart modified to accommodate her crutches. Isaiah walking beside her while Rosie sat in the cart's child seat. The recognition was mutual. Her eyes met mine across the produce section, and something flickered in her expression that might have been surprise or discomfort or both. "Donovan," she said as I approached. "I didn't expect to see you again. Nashville isn't that big. People run into each other." "True." She glanced around, perhaps checking whether I was alone. "How have you been?" "Complicated. My wife and I are divorcing." "I'm sorry. That's partly because of me, isn't it?" "It's because of us. Me and Priscilla. You were just the occasion that revealed what was already broken. Still, I feel some responsibility." "You shouldn't. You needed help. I helped. Everything that happened afterward was between me and my wife." Isaiah tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, is this the man who gave us the ride?" "Yes, honey. This is Mr. Pierce. Thank you for the ride, Mr. Pierce. It was raining really hard and I was scared." "You're welcome, Isaiah. I'm glad I could help. Mom said you were like a superhero, appearing out of nowhere to rescue us." I looked at Nadine, who was blushing slightly. "That's very kind, but I'm not a superhero. I'm just someone who was in the right place at the right time." "Right time. That's what makes them super." The child's logic was charming, and I found myself smiling despite the complexity of the situation. I've been meaning to reach out, to follow up on helping with the car situation, but I wasn't sure if it would be welcome. I managed to find a used car. A friend of a friend was selling one, and they gave me a payment plan I could handle. It's not much, but it runs. That's good. I'm glad things worked out. They did. Thanks to you, and you got us home that night, which meant I could get to work the next day, which meant I kept my job, which meant I could afford the car. Everything connects. Everything connects. That's how life works. We stood in awkward silence for a moment, the grocery store bustling around us while we navigated the uncertain territory of an unusual connection. "Would you like to get coffee sometime?" I asked, surprising myself with the question. Not as anything complicated, just to talk. I don't have many people I can talk to right now, and you're someone who knows, well, you know something about what I'm going through in a way. Nadine hesitated, clearly uncertain. I'm not asking for anything other than conversation, I clarified. I'm in the middle of a divorce, and I'm not looking for… I just want someone to talk to who doesn't have an agenda. Everyone has an agenda. That's what I told you before. Maybe, but some agendas are simpler than others. Mine is just, I helped you once. You seemed like someone worth knowing, and I'd like to know you better, as a person, as a friend. If that's something you'd be interested in. Nadine looked at her children, then back at me, weighing considerations I could only guess at. Coffee, she said finally. One coffee. We'll see what happens from there. That's all I'm asking. We exchanged phone numbers, made tentative plans for the following week, and parted ways in the grocery store parking lot. As I drove away, I felt something unfamiliar. A lightness, perhaps. Or the beginning of something I couldn't yet name. My life was falling apart. And somehow, in the midst of the wreckage, something new was starting to grow. The coffee meeting took place at a small cafe near Nadine's apartment, a neutral location that she could reach easily, and that didn't carry the weight of romantic expectation. We sat across from each other at a corner table, both uncertain how to navigate a conversation that had no clear template. I should probably tell you more about myself, I said, since you shared so much of your story that first night. I was trying to explain why I was suspicious of your help, not necessarily inviting reciprocal disclosure. Fair enough. But if we're going to be friends, if that's even possible, you should know who I'm trying to be friends with. Nadine nodded, her expression cautious but open. I'm 41. I was married to Priscilla for 12 years, and I've known her since college. We have 2 children. Ethan is 11 and Charlotte is 9. I started a contracting business 15 years ago, and it's done well. Well enough that Priscilla hasn't worked outside the home since Charlotte was born. And now you're getting divorced because your wife didn't want to help me. I'm getting divorced because that incident revealed something I'd been trying not to see. Priscilla has always been particular about who matters to her. When we were younger, I thought it was focus, ambition, the ability to prioritize. But over the years, it became something harder, more dismissive of anyone outside her circle, more contemptuous of people who have less than we do. And that night, you finally saw it clearly. That night, I saw her look at a struggling mother with 2 children and feel nothing but annoyance, and I realized that whatever I had loved about her, it had been replaced, or maybe was never there to begin with. That's a hard thing to realize about someone you've spent more than a decade. It is. But it's also clarifying. I know now what I don't want. I know what I can't accept. That's more than I knew a month ago. Nadine sipped her coffee, her expression thoughtful. You're remarkably calm about all of this. Most people going through divorce are angry or devastated or both. I've had time to process. And honestly, I think I've been processing for years without admitting it. The actual decision was sudden, but the reasons behind it had been accumulating for a long time. That makes sense. My husband and I, before the accident, we were having some problems too. Nothing that seemed insurmountable, but looking back, I wonder if we would have eventually reached the same point you and Priscilla reached. Except we never got the chance to find out. Do you wish you had? Sometimes. Not because I wanted to divorce him, but because I would have liked the chance to try to fix things. To know whether we could have saved our marriage. We had both made different choices. The accident took that choice away from me. The accident took a lot of things away. My husband, my leg, my sense of safety. I'm still reclaiming pieces of what I lost. 5 years later, and yet you're here. You're raising your children, maintaining a career, building a life. That's remarkable. It's survival. There's nothing remarkable about doing what you have to do. I disagree. Plenty of people face hardship and give up. You faced catastrophic loss and kept going. That's not just survival. That's strength. Nadine looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. Can we talk about something else? I didn't come here to be inspirational, of course. What would you like to talk about? Anything normal. Movies, books, the weather. What it's like to have friends who aren't also parents from my kids' school, or co-workers I only interact with electronically. You don't have many friends? I don't have time for friends. Being a single mother with a disability is a full-time job on top of my actual full-time job. Socializing is a luxury I can't usually afford. Then I'm honored you made time for this. I'm not sure honor is the right word. Curiosity may. You're an unusual person, Donovan Pierce. Most men in your position would have moved on, forgotten the woman at the bus stop, focused on their own problems. Most men in my position might not have stopped in the first place. Also true. So what makes you different? The question was direct in a way I was learning to appreciate about Nadine. She didn't soften or circumvent, just asked what she wanted to know. I had good parents, I said after considering. They taught me that everyone matters, that helping is a responsibility, that character is defined by what you do when no one is watching. I've tried to live by that, even when it was hard. And your wife didn't share those values? She shared them when we met, or seemed to. But people change. Circumstances reveal things that were always there or create things that weren't. I'm not sure which happened with Priscilla, but the end result is the same. We talked for another hour, the conversation ranging from practical topics, our children, our work, the logistics of single parenting, to more personal territory, our hopes, our disappointments, the ways we had imagined our lives turning out differently. By the time we parted, something had shifted. The awkwardness of strangers had given way to the beginnings of genuine connection. Not romantic, not complicated, just two people who had found unexpected common ground. "Can we do this again?" I asked as we walked to our cars. "I'd like that. Same time next week?" "Same time next week." The drive home felt different than usual, less heavy, less isolated. I had made a friend, a real friend, without agenda or pretense. In the midst of everything falling apart, something was being built. The divorce proceedings grew contentious as Priscilla's initial composure gave way to anger and vindictiveness. Her lawyers sought a settlement that would have left me financially devastated, claiming that my abandonment of her justified punitive arrangements. "She's saying you abandoned her?" my attorney Marcus Whitfield asked during one of our strategy sessions. "You made her get out of the car. That's not abandonment, that's a disagreement. It's how she's framing it. The narrative is that I chose a stranger over my wife and have been emotionally absent from the marriage for years." Is there any truth to that? The emotional absence? I've been physically present. Whether I was emotionally present, I hesitated. I stopped confiding in Priscilla a long time ago, stopped sharing my real thoughts and feelings because they were always met with dismissal or criticism. That's self-protection, not abandonment. A reasonable response to an unsupportive partner. Tell that to her lawyers. The custody arrangements were equally contentious. Priscilla sought primary custody with limited visitation for, arguing that my impulsive decision-making made me an unsuitable parent. The accusation stung, not because it was accurate, but because it revealed how willing Priscilla was to use our children as weapons. "She's going to lose on the custody front," Marcus assured me. "You're a good father with no history of instability or neglect. The court will see through the tactical maneuvering. And in the meantime? In the meantime, document everything. Every communication, every exchange, every time she makes things difficult. Build the record that will support your case." The documentation became a grim routine, turning every interaction with my estranged wife into a potential legal exhibit. The woman I had once loved, or thought I loved, had become an adversary, someone to be managed rather than connected with. Against this backdrop, my friendship with Nadine provided a welcome refuge. Our weekly coffee meetings became an anchor point in weeks that otherwise blurred together. A reminder that not all relationships were defined by conflict and strategy. "How's the divorce going?" she asked during one of our meetings, her tone sympathetic but direct. "Ugly. Priscilla is fighting for everything she can get, and she's willing to use the kids as leverage. That's terrible, for you and for them. I'm trying to shield them from the worst of it, but kids are perceptive. They know something's wrong even if they don't understand the Isaiah asked about you the other. He wanted to know if we were still friends with the man who gave us the ride. What did you tell him?" "I told him yes, that you were a good person who helped people when they needed it." He seemed satisfied with. "And Rosie?" "Rosie doesn't remember much about that. She's 3. The rain and the ride are already fading into the background of her experience. But she's started asking when she can meet my friend Donovan. I've apparently mentioned you more than I realized." The observation carried weight that neither of us directly addressed. Our friendship had become significant to both of us. More significant, perhaps, than either of us had initially intended. "Would you like to meet them properly?" Nadine asked. "Not in a grocery store or a coffee shop, but actually spend time with them?" "I would, if you think that's appropriate. I think my children could use positive male role models in their lives. Their father died when Isaiah was barely he doesn't remember him, and Rosie never met him. Having a consistent, trustworthy man in their world, even just as a friend of their mother's, might be good for them. I'm not looking to replace their father. I know, and I'm not asking you. I'm just saying that your presence could be valuable if you're willing to take on that kind of responsibility." The request was significant. Nadine was offering to integrate me into her family's life, to make our friendship something more than occasional conversations in neutral locations. The vulnerability of the offer wasn't lost on me. "I'm willing," I said, "and I'm honored that you trust me enough to ask. Trust is earned. You've been earning it." The following Saturday, I met Isaiah and Rosie properly for the first time since that rainy night. We went to a park near Nadine's apartment, and I watched as her children played with the uninhibited joy of kids who had found an unexpected treat in an ordinary way. Isaiah was serious and thoughtful, asking questions about my work, my life, my interests with the careful curiosity of a child trying to assess whether an adult was worth. Rosie was pure enthusiasm, chattering constantly about everything that caught her attention, demanding to be pushed on swings and caught at the bottom of slides. Nadine watched from a bench, her crutches beside her, her expression carrying something I couldn't quite identify. Warmth, perhaps. or the particular tenderness of a mother watching her children be happy. "Thank you for this," she said when I sat beside her while the kids played in the sandbox. "They don't get many outings like this." "Why not?" "Because outings require energy and logistics that I don't always have. Getting 2 kids and myself somewhere, managing everything with one leg, keeping track of everyone while also keeping track of myself, it's exhausting. Easier to stay home most of the time." "Would it help if you had company? Someone who could help with the logistics? Are you offering?" "I'm offering if you want." Nadine was quiet for watching her children sculpt something unidentifiable in the sand. "There's something you should know," she said finally. "Something I haven't told you." "What is it?" "I'm attracted to you. I've been trying not to be, because the timing is terrible, and the circumstances are complicated, and I don't want to be someone's rebound, but I thought you should know." The confession landed with a weight I hadn't expected, though perhaps I should have. The connection between us had been growing, deepening, becoming something that friendship alone couldn't quite contain. "I'm attracted to you too," I admitted. "I've been trying not to be for similar reasons. So, what do we do about it?" "I don't know. I'm still in the middle of a divorce. You're navigating your own complicated life. Starting something now might not be fair to either of us. Or it might be exactly what we both need. How do we know which one it is?" "We don't. That's the terrifying part." We sat in silence, watching the children play, feeling the weight of a decision that neither of us had planned to face. "Can we take it slowly?" I asked. "See what develops without rushing into anything? My divorce needs to finish, and we both need to be sure that whatever this is, it's real, and not just circumstance." "Slowly sounds reasonable. I've had enough impulsive decisions in my—" "Then slowly it is." But even as we agreed to caution, something had shifted. The friendship had evolved into something else. Something more tentative, more vulnerable, more potentially significant. The road ahead was uncertain, but for the first time in months, I felt like I was heading somewhere worth going. Priscilla discovered my friendship with Nadine through means I never fully understood. Perhaps mutual acquaintances, perhaps surveillance she had arranged, perhaps simple Nashville geography making the inevitable encounter unavoidable. Regardless of the source, she weaponized the information immediately. "You've been seeing her," she said during a custody exchange, her voice carrying the particular venom she reserved for her most damaging accusations. "The crippled woman from the bus stop. She has a name. We're friends." "Friends, is that what you call it? You destroyed our marriage for her, and now you're parading her around town like some kind of trophy." "I'm not parading anyone. We have coffee occasionally. We've spent time with our kids together. There's nothing inappropriate happening." "Nothing inappropriate? You left me for her." "I didn't leave you for anyone. I left you because you couldn't feel compassion for a struggling mother." Nadine had nothing to do with that decision except as the catalyst that revealed what I should have seen years ago. That's not how anyone else will see it. That's not how the court will see it. The threat was clear. Priscilla intended to use my friendship with Nadine to paint me as an adulterer, as someone who had abandoned his marriage for a romantic interest rather than principle. "There was no affair," I said firmly. "There is no affair. Nadine and I are friends, nothing more, yet. Even if something develops eventually, it won't be until the divorce is final, and even then it's none of your business who I choose to spend time with." "It becomes my business when it affects my children. I don't want that woman around Ethan and Charlotte. You don't get to make that decision. She's a good person, a good mother, and there's nothing about her that would harm our kids in any way. She's disabled. She can barely take care of her own children, let alone help with ours." The cruelty of the accusation was breathtaking, reducing Nadine to her disability, suggesting that her physical limitation made her unsuitable to be around children. Her disability has nothing to do with her character or her capability as a person. She's more compassionate, more resilient, and more genuine than you've ever been. Our children would be lucky to have her influence in their lives. "Is that so? A one-legged woman who lives in a rundown apartment complex and can't even afford a working car? That's who you want influencing our children? I want them influenced by kindness, by perseverance, by the understanding that people are more than their circumstances." Nadine embodies all of those things. You could learn from her. I don't need to learn anything from welfare cases. The dehumanization in Priscilla's words was complete. Nadine had become a category rather than a person, a label rather than an individual with a name and a history, and a value that had nothing to do with her economic status. "This conversation is over," I said, gathering the children's overnight bags with movements that concealed my anger. "You can take up your objections with the court. In the meantime, I'll spend my custody time as I see fit, with people of my choosing." "We'll see about that." The threat followed me home, coloring my evening with the children, making me wonder what additional complications Priscilla would introduce into an already difficult situation. I called Marcus the next morning, explaining the development and asking for advice. "She can try to make an issue of it," he said, "but absent evidence of actual harm to the children, the court won't restrict who you spend time with during your custody periods. Having a female friend who happens to be disabled is not grounds for modification of custody arrangements." And if she claims there's been an affair? Do you have documentation that the relationship has been platonic? Witnesses who can testify to the nature of your interactions? We've met in public places, coffee shops, parks. There have always been other people around. Then you have witnesses who can testify that your behavior has been appropriate. She can claim whatever she wants, but the evidence will support your version of events. The legal assurance was comforting, but the emotional toll was significant. Priscilla was willing to drag Nadine into our dispute, to characterize her in the most unflattering terms possible, to use prejudice against disability as a weapon. I needed to warn Nadine about what was coming. We met that afternoon, her expression concerned as I explained the situation. She's going to target you, I said. She's going to say terrible things about you, try to make you look like someone who shouldn't be around children. I wanted you to know what you might be facing. I've faced worse. 5 years of being stared at, pitied, underestimated. I've developed thick skin. This might be more direct than staring. Priscilla can be vicious when she wants to be. Then I'll be ready for it. But I need to ask you something, Donovan. Anything. Is this worth it? Is our friendship, whatever it is, worth the additional complications it's causing in divorce, in your relationship with your kids? Yes. Without hesitation. Why? Because you're the first genuine person I've connected with in years. Because talking to you makes me feel like myself in a way I had forgotten was possible. Because whatever hardship comes from knowing you, it's worth it for the good that also comes. Nadine's expression softened, her defensive posture relaxing slightly. That's a lot of faith to put in a friendship that's only a few months old. Maybe. Or maybe some connections are significant from the beginning, and time just reveals what's already there. You're a romantic. I'm a realist who believes in romance. There's a difference. She laughed, a genuine sound that I had heard rarely enough to treasure. Okay, Donovan Pierce. Let's face this together. Whatever your ex-wife throws at us, we'll handle it. Together. Together. The divorce was finalized 6 months after that rainy eve. 6 months of lawyers and negotiations and emotional exhaustion that left both Priscilla and me diminished but free of each. The settlement was more equitable than Priscilla's initial demands, thanks to Marcus's skilled advocacy and the court's recognition that her claims of abandonment were unfounded. We split custody of Ethan and Charlotte, divided assets according to standard formulas, and agreed to maintain civil communication for the sake of our children. Priscilla's attempts to restrict my contact with Nadine failed completely. The court found no evidence of inappropriate behavior, no basis for claiming that my friendship posed any risk to the children. The prejudice she had tried to weaponize, against disability, against economic circumstance, found no purchase in a legal system designed to evaluate actual harm rather than social judgments. It's over, I told Nadine on the day the decree was finalized. Officially over. How do you feel? Relieved? Sad? Ready for whatever comes next? And what does come next? The question hung in the air, carrying implications we had been carefully avoiding throughout the divorce proceeding. I'd like to take you on a proper date, I said, if you're interested. Not coffee, not the park, something that acknowledges what's been building between us. You're sure you're ready? The divorce just became final. The divorce was a legal formality by the end. Emotionally, I've been finished with Priscilla for months. But I wanted to wait, to be respectful of the process, to be sure that whatever happens between us isn't tainted by circumstances. And now that the process is complete, now I want to find out what we could be, if you want the same thing. Nadine was quiet for a moment, her expression thoughtful. I've been thinking about this a lot, she said finally. What it would mean to start something with the complications, your kids adjusting to your divorce, my kids potentially getting attached, the logistics of 2 single parents trying to build a relationship. They're significant. They are. But are they insurmountable? I don't know. That's what scares me. I've been alone for 5 years. I've built a life that works. Barely, but it works. Letting someone in, letting my kids get attached, risking the stability I've created. It's terrifying. I understand. I'm not asking you to commit to anything. I'm asking for a chance to explore what's possible. One date? One date. We'll see how it goes, and we'll make decisions from there. Okay, one date. The date happened that Saturday. Dinner at a restaurant nice enough to feel special, but casual enough not to create pressure. We left the children with sitters, mine with my sister who had come to support me through the divorce, hers with the same neighbor who occasionally helped, and focused for one evening on being 2 adults without the identities of parent, divorcee, or anything else that complicates. Tell me something I don't know about you, Nadine said over appetizer, something you haven't shared in our coffee conversations. I wanted to be a musician when I was younger, played guitar in a band through college, thought we might actually make it somewhere. Life had other plans. Do you still play? Not much. The guitar's in a closet somewhere. Another thing I gave up because Priscilla thought it was beneath us. That's sad. Passions shouldn't be abandoned because someone else doesn't share them. What about you? What did you give up? Dancing. The word carried weight. I loved dancing. I was actually pretty good. Took lessons from age 7. competed through high school. When I lost my leg, I assumed that part of my life was over. Is it? I thought so. But lately I've been seeing videos of amputee dancers. Adaptive choreography, prosthetic design that allows for movement was possible. Part of me wonders if I could learn again, in some modified form. You should try. If it's something you loved, you should find a way back to it. Maybe, when the kids are older, when I have more time, or maybe now. Maybe making time for the things you love is how you model self-care for your children. Nadine smiled, a real smile that transformed her face. You're good at that. Making things seem possible that I've convinced myself are impossible. That's what friends do, or whatever we're becoming. What are we I don't know yet, but I'm excited to find out. The dinner continued, conversation flowing easily between topics light and serious, present and future. By the time we finished dessert, the connection that had been building for months felt more solid than ever. Something that could support weight, could grow, could become whatever we were brave enough to let it become. I drove her home, walked her to her door, and stood in the uncertain space between ending the evening and starting something else. I had a wonderful time, Nadine said. So did I. Can we do this again? I was hoping you'd ask. She kissed me then, brief, tentative, but unmistakably intentional. A statement of willingness, of readiness to explore what we might be together. Good night, Donovan. Good night, Nate. I drove home with her kiss still resonating, feeling something I had almost forgotten was possible. The beginning of building a relationship while raising children separately required logistics that neither Nadine nor I had fully anticipated. We learned quickly that traditional dating, spontaneous outings, late nights, weekends away, was largely impossible when 4 children of varying ages depended. Instead, we adapted. Family activities became our primary mode of picnics in the park with all 4 kids. Movie nights that accommodated both elementary-age attention spans and toddler interruption. Cooking sessions where Isaiah and Ethan discovered a surprising shared interest in culinary experiment. The children's integration was surprisingly smooth. Charlotte, at 9, was enchanted by Rosie and adopted an older sister role that brought out nurturing qualities I hadn't seen before. Ethan and Isaiah, closer in age, developed the particular friendship of boys who share similar temperaments. Both serious, both thoughtful, both old beyond their years. They like each other, Nadine observed during one of our increasingly common joint outings. The kids, they actually like spending time together. That's good. It would be much harder if they didn't. Are we moving too fast, integrating our families when we've only been dating for a few months? I don't think so. The kids see each other under supervision, in group activities. It's not like we're pushing them into sibling roles before we've established what our own relationship is. And what is our relationship? The question had become less fraught over time, the answer emerging gradually through accumulated moments rather than declared intentions. We're partners, I said. Whatever formal label applies or doesn't, we're partners. We face things together. We support each other. We're building something. That sounds like a relationship to me. Then that's what it is. The simplicity of the exchange belied its significance. We had arrived at commitment not through dramatic declarations, but through consistent presence, shared challenges, the daily choice to show up for each other and for each other's children. My relationship with Isaiah and Rosie deepened as well. Isaiah, initially reserved, had opened up as my consistency proved itself. He asked me questions about my work, about being a father, about why I had stopped to help them that rainy night when no one else did. Because it was right, I told him, and because not helping would have been wrong. Sometimes that's all the reason you... Mom said the same thing. She said you're a good person because you do right things even when they're hard. Your mom is pretty good at that herself. She does hard things every day. Because of her leg? Because of her leg. Because she's raising you and Rosie on her own. Because she works hard to give you a good life. Those are all hard things that she does because she loves you. Isaiah nodded solemnly. I want to be like that when someone who does right things even when they're hard. You already are, buddy. The way you take care of your sister. The way you help your mom. You're already that person. Rosie was simpler to connect with. 3-year-olds have less complicated emotional needs. She wanted attention, affection, someone to play games and read stories and push swings. I provided those things willingly, discovering in the process a capacity for patience and silliness that my own children rarely evoked. You're good with her, Nadine observed. Natural. She makes it easy. Pure joy that she wasn't always. The first year after the accident before she was born, I wasn't sure I could handle another child. And after she arrived, I wasn't sure I could handle her and Isaiah and my recovery and everything else. There were some very dark times. But you made it through. I made it through because there was no alternative. When you're the only parent, when there's no one to hand things off to, you find capacity you didn't know you had. You shouldn't have had to do it alone. No. But I did. And now I'm not alone anymore. The statement carried implications we didn't need to articulate. Our lives had become intertwined, not through dramatic gestures, but through accumulated moments, shared meals, combined outings, the gradual merging of two families into something that functioned increasingly like one. I want to talk about the future, I said during one of our rare child-free evenings. Where we're heading, what we're building. Okay, what about it? I want more of this. More time together, more integration of our lives. I want the kids to grow up together, to become the kind of family that geography and circumstance created rather than biology. You're talking about living together, eventually, when it feels right for everyone. I'm not rushing toward anything. I've learned that lesson, but I want you to know the direction I'm hoping we're moving. And you think the kids are ready for that? Ethan and Charlotte are still adjusting to the divorce. The kids are thriving. They love spending time with you and Isaiah and Rosie. Charlotte asked me last week whether we were ever going to live in the same house so she wouldn't have to say goodbye to Rosie at the end of every visit. Isaiah asked me something similar, whether you were going to be his new dad. What did you tell him? I told him that relationships take time, and that whatever happens, you'll always be someone important in his life. Was that the right thing to say? It was perfect, honest, without making promises we might not keep. And what promises can we keep? What are we certain of? I'm certain that I love you. I'm certain that I want to build a future with you. I'm certain that whatever obstacles come, I want to face them together. I love you too. I wasn't sure I would ever feel this way again after Elliot died. I thought that part of me was gone, the part that could trust, that could open up, that could risk being hurt. And now I know it wasn't gone. It was just waiting for the right person to find it. The obstacle arrived in the form of Priscilla's renewed legal act, a motion to modify custody based on her discovery that Nadine and I were in a serious relationship. She's claiming the relationship creates an unstable environment for the children, Marcus explained during an emergency consultation, that introducing a new romantic partner and her children is detrimental to Ethan and Charlotte's well-being. That's absurd. The kids are doing great. Better than great. I know, but she has a right to raise the issue, and the court has to consider it. What are our options? We present evidence of the children's positive adjustment, school records, statements from teachers, a guardian ad litem evaluation if necessary. We demonstrate that your relationship with Nadine has enhanced rather than harmed Ethan and Charlotte's lives. And if the court sides with Priscilla, it won't. The evidence is overwhelmingly in your favor, but the process itself is stressful, expensive, and time-consuming, which is probably her real goal, to punish you for moving on, to create obstacles that make your life harder. The realization that Priscilla would use our children as weapons was not new, but its recurrence was disheartening. Whatever love had once existed between us had curdled into something vindictive, something willing to cause harm to anyone connected to me. I explained the situation to Nadine, who received the news with the calm that characterized her response to most challenges. This is because of me, because she can't stand the thought of you being happy with someone else. It's because of her. Her inability to accept that the marriage is over. Her need to control what she can no longer possess. Still, if our relationship didn't exist, she wouldn't have this avenue of attack. And if our relationship didn't exist, I'd be less happy, the kids would have less joy in their lives, and Priscilla would find some other way to make trouble. Don't blame yourself for her vindictiveness. I'm not blaming myself. I'm wondering whether it would be easier for everyone if I stepped back. Stepped back? What does that mean? Reduced our visibility as a couple. Let the custody dispute settle before making our relationship more public. Nadine, that's exactly what she wants. For us to hide, to be ashamed, to treat our relationship as something that needs to be concealed. I won't give her that satisfaction. This isn't about satisfaction. It's about what's best for your children. My children benefit from having you in their lives. Any evaluation will show that. I'm not going to sacrifice something good because Priscilla has decided to weaponize it. The conversation revealed tension I hadn't anticipated. Nadine's willingness to retreat conflicting with my determination to stand firm. We were both trying to protect what mattered most, but our strategies diverged. Let's at least wait for the evaluation. See what the guardian ad litem says before we make any decisions. Fine, we wait, but I want you to know, whatever the evaluation says, whatever the court decides, I'm not giving up on it. Neither am I. I just don't want your kids to pay the price for our relationship. They won't. We'll make sure of it. The evaluation process was thorough, requiring interviews with all parties, observations of the children in various settings, review of school records and medical history. The guardian ad litem, a serious woman named Dr. Patricia Hoffman, approached her work with the careful attention that such consequential decisions deserve. I need to understand your relationship with Ms. Hollister, she told me during our interview, how it developed, how the children have been integrated, what your plans are for the future. I explained everything, the rainy night, the friendship, the gradual evolution into romance, the increasing integration of our families. I held nothing back, understanding that honesty was both ethically required and strategically sound. And your ex-wife's objections? How do you respond to them? Her objections are rooted in hostility toward me rather than genuine concern for the children. She has characterized Nadine in terms that reveal prejudice against disability, against economic circumstance. Her real goal is to punish me for ending the marriage and for finding happiness with someone else. That's a serious accusation. It's an accurate one. I have documentation of her statement, witnesses who can testify to her attitudes. I'll need to review that document. I'll make it available. The evaluation continued for 3 weeks, encompassing all the complexities of our blended family situation. When Dr. Hoffman's report was finally submitted, we gathered in Marcus's office to review its finding. She recommends no change to the custody arrangement, Marcus said, the relief evident in his voice. Better than that. She explicitly states that the relationship with Nadine has been beneficial for Ethan and Charlotte, providing them with positive role models and extended social connections. And Priscilla's motion will almost certainly be denied based on this report. She has no grounds, and the court doesn't look kindly on custody modifications sought for vindictive rather than protective purposes. The ruling, when it came, was exactly as Marcus predicted. Priscilla's motion was denied with language that came close to rebuke, the judge noting that the evidence suggested the petitioner's concerns were motivated by animosity toward her former spouse rather than genuine regard for the children's welfare. I shared the news with Nadine that evening, watching the tension she had carried for weeks finally begin to dissolve. It's over? It's over. The court saw through Priscilla's manipulation. We can move forward without this hanging over us. I'm so relieved. I was worried, not about us, but about your kids, about whether our relationship was costing them their father. It wasn't. It won't. The court affirmed what we already knew, that what we're building is good for everyone. So what now? Now we build. Without obstacles, without litigation, without fear. We build the life we've been working toward. I proposed to Nadine on the 1-year anniversary of the night we met, returning to the same bus stop, now transformed by the context of everything that had followed. This is where it started, I said, as we stood where she had once struggled in this corner that night. The decision to stop when everyone else drove past. I remember. Isaiah was scared, Rosie was crying, and I was wondering how I was going to get us home. And then you appeared. I've thought about that night so many times. What would have happened if I hadn't stopped? If I had listened to Priscilla and kept driving? I would have eventually gotten home. The bus would have come, or I would have managed somehow. We always manage somehow, but we wouldn't have found each other. Our families wouldn't have merged. Everything that's happened over the past year, none of it would exist. Strange how one decision can change everything. It is. And I want to make another decision that changes everything. Or rather, I want to ask you to make a decision with me. I reached into my pocket and withdrew the ring I had chosen with more care than anything I had ever purchased. Simple, elegant, sized to fit her finger based on a ring I had borrowed from her jewelry box weeks earlier. Nadine Hollister, will you marry me? Will you let me be Isaiah and Rosie's stepfather? Let our children become siblings. Let us build the family that started with a moment of compassion in the... Her response was not immediate. Nadine never responded immediately to significant questions. Always processing, always thoughtful. Yes, she said finally. Yes, I'll marry. Yes to all of it. The kiss that followed was different from our first. Deeper, more certain, containing the accumulated weight of everything we had built and everything we intended to build. The kids are going to be excited, she said when we finally separate. They already know. I asked their permission first. All 4 of them. Told them what I was planning and asked if it was okay. You asked our children's permission to propose? This affects them as much as it affects us. They deserved a voice. What did they say? Isaiah said he thought it was a good idea because I make you smile. Rosie said yes because she wants Charlotte to be her sister. Ethan said he supports whatever makes me happy. And Charlotte asked if this meant she'd finally get to share a room with Rosie. So we have unanimous approval. We have unanimous approval. Plus my own, if that matters. It matters. It matters more than anything. We walked back to my car, the bus stop receding behind us, transformed from a place of crisis into a place of beginning. I want to do the wedding soon, Nadine said. Not because I'm eager to be married again, but because I'm eager for our kids to be siblings, for our families to be officially one family. How soon is soon? A few months? Just family, nothing elaborate. Maybe at the park where we used to take the kids together. That sounds perfect, and I want to keep my name, Hollister. For Isaiah and Rosie, they carry their father's name, and I want to carry it too. I understand. You'll be Nadine Hollister, and I'll be Donovan Pierce, and our kids will have different last names, and none of it will matter, because we'll all be family. That's exactly right. None of the labels matter, just the love. The wedding happened 3 months later, exactly as Nadine had envisioned. Small, intimate, held in the park where our children had first begun to know each other. The guest list was deliberately limited. My sister and her husband, a few close friends from each of our lives, the lawyers and doctors who had become unexpectedly important figures in our respective journeys. No extended family from Priscilla's side. No former colleagues who might feel obligated rather than genuinely celebratory. The children played central roles. Isaiah walked his mother down the aisle, his young face serious with the weight of the responsibility. Charlotte and Rosie scattered flower petals, giggling together in the way that had become characteristic of their friendship. Ethan stood beside me as my best man, his support meaning more than any adults could have. "We gather today to celebrate a union that began with an act of kindness," the officiant said. Donovan and Nadine found each other through circumstance that could easily have led nowhere. A rainy night, a struggling mother, a moment of compassion. But they chose to let that moment grow, to build something beautiful from unexpected beginning. The vows we had written were personal, specific to our particular journey. "Nadine," I said, "I promise to always stop when someone needs help. I promise to model for our children the compassion that brought us together. I promise to be a partner in every challenge and a witness to every joy. I promise to love your children as my own and to build a family that honors what you lost while creating something new." "Donovan," she responded, "I promise to trust when trust feels impossible. I promise to accept help when help is offered. I promise to dance again in whatever form my body allows, because you showed me that limitations don't define capability. I promise to love your children as my own and to build a family that proves second chances can be better than first tries." The kiss that sealed our vows was witnessed by all 4 of our children, their faces carrying varying expressions of joy and anticipation, and the particular satisfaction of knowing that something right was happening. The reception was potluck style, guests contributing dishes that reflected our community rather than any formal catering. We ate on blankets spread across the grass, the children running between adult groups with the freedom that parks provide. "Happy?" Nadine asked as we watched our blended family celebrate. "Completely. For the first time in years, completely." "Me too. I didn't think I would ever be here, married again, surrounded by children who all feel like mine, part of something bigger than my own survival. You built this. As much as I did. More, maybe. You took a chance on a stranger who stopped his car in a storm. You took a bigger chance. You gave up your marriage, faced legal challenges, changed your entire life because you helped someone who needed it, and got everything I ever wanted in return. That's not sacrifice. That's luck. Or maybe it's karma. Good things coming to people who do good things. I'll take either explanation, as long as the result is this." We kissed again, not because any ceremony required it, but because the moment demanded connection. "Mom, Dad," Charlotte's voice cut through our private "We're doing the cake." The word "Dad" from Charlotte, directed at the celebration rather than specifically it, nonetheless landed with significance. We had become parents to all 4 children, titles emerging naturally from the roles we had adopted. "Coming, sweetheart," I called back. The cake was consumed with the enthusiasm that children bring to sugar, the adults watching with the particular joy of seeing happiness. As the afternoon faded toward evening, I found myself reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. A year and a half ago, I had been trapped in a marriage that was slowly eroding my soul, married to a woman who couldn't feel compassion for strangers in need. Now I was surrounded by a family built on on the belief that stopping to help matters, that kindness creates ripples that extend far beyond the... "Ready to go home?" Nadine asked as the last guests departed. "Ready. Let's take our family home." The home we created together was neither my previous house nor Nadine's small apartment, but a new space chosen specifically for our merged family. A 4-bedroom house in a neighborhood with good schools, accessible features that accommodated Nadine's mobility needs, and a backyard large enough for 4 children to run and play. The moving process was complicated, requiring the coordination of 2 households into one, while maintaining custody schedules and work obligations. But we managed, as we had learned to manage everything, together, with patience, with the accumulated wisdom of people who had navigated harder challenges. "This is real now," Nadine said on our first night in the new house, the children finally asleep in their respective rooms, the boxes still largely unpacked around us. "We live here, all 6 of us. This is our family's home. How does it feel?" "Terrifying, wonderful, like something I stopped believing was possible. You and me both." We settled into routines that accommodated everyone's needs. Morning chaos became choreographed rather than accidental. Coffee for adults, breakfast for children, the particular ballet of 2 parents getting 4 kids ready for school and daycare. Evenings were similarly structured. Homework help, dinner preparation, the negotiations of bedtime that parents of multiple children know intimately. Ethan and Isaiah shared a room by choice, their friendship having evolved into something resembling brotherhood. Charlotte and Rosie shared as well, the age gap between them creating a big sister-little sister dynamic that seemed to suit both girls. "They're becoming siblings," Nadine observed during one of our rare quiet moments. Not just kids who live together, actual siblings who care about each other. That's what we hoped for. I know. But hoping and seeing are different. Seeing it actually happen, watching them fight over stupid things and then defend each other against anyone outside the family. It's everything. The fighting was indeed part of the package. 4 children under one roof generated conflict as reliably as it generated joy. Arguments over toys, over television shows, over who got the last cookie. Nadine and I learned to navigate these disputes with consistency and fairness, presenting a united front even when we privately disagreed about the best approach. We have to be a team, I said after one particularly exhausting evening of conflict resolution. Even when we see things differently, the kids can't play us against each other. Agreed. Though I reserve the right to tell you privately when I think you're wrong. Same. Always. The co-parenting with Priscilla remained complicated. She had custody of Ethan and Charlotte every other weekend, and her interactions with them during these periods were unpredictable, sometimes pleasant, sometimes marked by subtle attempts to undermine my new family. Mom says your house is too crowded, Charlotte reported after one visit. She says 4 kids in one house is too many. What do you think? I think Mom's house is quiet and lonely, and I don't like being there as much as I used to. You still love your mother, though, even if you prefer being here, I guess. It's confusing. It is confusing. But it's okay to love both places, to have different feelings about different things. Your mother loves you, even if she's struggling with how things have changed. Managing the children's complex loyalties to both their biological parents and their new step-parent required constant attention and flexibility. We tried not to speak negatively of Priscilla in the children's hearing, tried to support their relationship with her even when she made things difficult. You're more generous than she deserves, Nadine said. Maybe, but Ethan and Charlotte don't need more conflict. They need stability, support, the freedom to love both their parents without feeling disloyal to either. That's remarkably mature. I've had good teachers, you for one. Watching how you've handled the loss of Elliot, how you've kept his memory alive for Isaiah while also building something new, that's shown me how to balance past and present. Elliot would have wanted me to be happy, to find someone who treats me and the kids well. That's not betraying his memory, it's honoring it. I hope Priscilla eventually reaches the same peace. For her sake as much as for the kids. You're a better person than I am. I have trouble hoping for anything good for her. That's fair. She hasn't earned your generosity. The household continued to evolve, adapting to the needs of its members, growing into something that felt increasingly like home. We added a dog, a gentle retriever mix named Biscuit, who had been at the shelter for months, and seemed to understand that she had landed in a family that would love her as thoroughly as she deserved. This is what I imagined, Nadine said one evening, surveying the chaos of children and dog and accumulated evidence of a life being fully lived. Not specifically, I couldn't have imagined you or this particular configuration, but this feeling, this sense of belonging somewhere, of having people who need me and whom I need. Me too. Though I think I had stopped imagining by the time I had accepted that my life would be what it was, functional but not fulfilling. And now I can't imagine anything else. This is what life is supposed to feel like. 5 years after I stopped my car in a rainstorm and offered a ride to a woman I'd never met, I stood on the deck of our home, watching my family, our family, navigate another ordinary evening. Isaiah, now 10, was helping Ethan, 16, with a math problem that was apparently causing frustration. The tutoring was patient and methodical, big brother to smaller brother in everything but blood. Charlotte, 14, was reading to Rosie, now 8, from a chapter book they were working through together. Another continuation of the sibling bond that had begun that first weekend in the park. Nadine was in the kitchen, moving with the efficiency she had perfected over years of adaptation, her prosthetic leg, finally acquired after a successful fundraising campaign my company had organized, allowing mobility that crutches had never provided. Dinner in 10, she called out to the General Assembly. Whoever doesn't wash hands doesn't eat. The resulting scramble toward bathroom was predictable and chaotic and perfect. I had built a life I never expected. A family forged from crisis and compassion, from the simple choice to stop when stopping was inconvenient. Every good thing that had followed, my relationship with Nadine, my expanded family, the home we had created, traced back to that single decision on a rainy evening. You're staring, Nadine said, appearing beside me on the deck. What are you thinking about? About how one moment can change everything. About how differently all of this could have gone. If you hadn't stopped that night, if Priscilla had agreed to help, if I had listened to her instead of my conscience, if I had driven past like everyone else, then we wouldn't be here. I would still be struggling alone, and you would still be trapped in a marriage that wasn't working, which makes me grateful for the choice, even though it was hard at the time. Choosing the right thing is usually hard. That's why not everyone does. You do, every day. I try. That's all anyone can do. Try. We stood together, watching through the window as our children converged on the dining room table. The scene was ordinary, domestic, exactly what family dinners looked like in countless homes across the country. But it was ours, built deliberately, maintained intentionally, cherished consciously. "I love you," I said, the words familiar but never diminished by repetition. "I love you too. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for getting in the car." We joined our family for dinner, taking our places at the table that had become the center of our shared life. The conversation was loud and overlapping, children competing for attention, inside jokes requiring explanation, the particular chaos that large families generate. Biscuits circled under the table, hoping for dropped food. Rosie spilled her water and started to cry before Charlotte comforted. Isaiah and Ethan debated something that none of the adults could follow. Nadine caught my eye across the table and smiled, the smile of someone who had arrived at a destination she hadn't known she was seeking. Later, after the children were in bed, and the house had settled into its nighttime quiet, we sat together on the deck, looking at stars that were visible despite the suburban light pollution. "Where do we go from here?" Nadine asked. "What's the next chapter?" "I don't know, but that's okay. We've built something that can handle whatever comes. A family strong enough to weather challenges, flexible enough to adapt to changes, rooted enough to provide stability." "That sounds like enough." "It's more than enough. It's everything." She leaned against me, and I wrapped my arm around her shoulders, feeling the particular contentment that comes from knowing you're exactly where you're supposed to be. The road that had led here had been unexpected, a rainy night, a struggling mother, a choice that changed everything. But it had brought me to this moment, this family, this life that was better than anything I had dared to imagine. Some roads lead nowhere, some lead to destinations you didn't know you needed, and some, the ones taken with compassion and courage, lead home.